Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Rats on Film, the show where a couple of film rats talk about and rank movies. Today on the show, we are getting our 00 license, finally diving into the world of James Bond, starting with Sean Connery's films. On the show today, I have number one James Bond fan I've ever known, Matthew C. Buckley.
You know, I will say Tim and I are fairly equal in this regard.
No.
I don't know.
He's being humble.
Yeah, you cannot do that. Don't put that on Tim. Don't put that on Tim. And we have Tim on the episode as well. Big James Bond fan. I wouldn't say not a fan, but you're not Buck.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan, but you know, Buck puts it into perspective.
Are we all wearing our Gruen Precision 510s, the watch that Connery first wears in the casino scene of Dr. No, and then again later in his apartment?
See, he tried to throw you under the bus, right? And then he's come out with this. And it's just like, there's no way that anyone would ever believe him now.
Listen, I feel like I'm going to be the Zaritsky of this podcast. I'm just going to bring out toys that no one can see, unfortunately, because this is a audio podcast.
What kind of toys? And I'm your host, Xander, a guy who's watched James Bond movies.
Can I bring out, I have to wait till we talk about Goldfinger till I can bring out those toys, right? Because Bond didn't really use gadgets till Goldfinger.
Yeah, not really. 6 movies. Connery, first ever James Bond. Very iconic in the role. I think probably the most iconic James Bond. Maybe not everybody's favorite, but the most iconic. We're not doing the unofficial Connery Bond. I think we may approach that on a different episode.
And by official, we mean the Bond series that is made by Eon, the production company, now Eon Amazon.
I want to prepare the audience. Buck's going to drop a lot of deep lore on these. He's going to do a lot of name dropping. He's going to do a lot of deep cut knowledge. You know, get your Googles out and fact check him. And if he gets anything wrong, get him.
Do it. I hear we have a big fan base in Australia. But we're not talking about the Australian Bond, George Lazenby, today. We're talking about the Scottish Bond, Sean Connery. And I would just like to say, Connery was so iconic in the role that Ian Fleming rewrote Bond's background in a novel that came out after Dr. No to make him Scottish. So if we're talking about is Bond Connery, is Connery Bond, they're intertwined. There's no way around it. Connery is baked into the lore.
Let's do this. Let's backtrack really quick. Buck, you've been, as far as I'm aware, a James Bond fan your entire life.
That is correct.
Is Sean Connery your introduction? Because we're not alive in 1962 when the first Bond movie comes out, or when the novels were coming out. So much of Bond's existence predates us and was already around when we would have been of an age to start watching it. But so Connery is your gateway into Bond.
Yeah, my dad got really sick. He told me of watching Pokemon, and he just decided to start watching James Bond movies with me when I was 5, and the first Bond movie I saw was Goldfinger, Thanksgiving 2000.
Damn.
Pre 9/11, I was watching Bond.
Wow.
So I think that informs my fandom, you know, because I'm assuming you guys watched Bond post 9/11.
100% for me.
I think Bond was pre 9/11 for me too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was around the time. I was about 6. From Russia with Love was my first. It was on TV.
Also Connery.
It's so interesting to me that both of you are like 5 years old watching James Bond, because I have a very distinct memory of my best friend in kindergarten being obsessed with James Bond, and my mom just being like, absolutely not. You will not be watching that. So Connery is not my introduction to Bond. I first became aware of him.
Most well adjusted out of all of us.
Yeah, I think so. First movie I saw was Casino Royale.
That was way later. That was way after 9/11.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm a post 9/11 Bond guy. But yeah, it was interesting. I was talking to Buck about this a little bit earlier. And I think for both of you, I mean, like Tim, you didn't even do a rewatch for this episode.
Yeah.
But for most of these movies on the episode today, this was only my second time watching them, which is kind of crazy compared to you guys who, like, Buck can probably quote the movies start to finish right now. He can definitely sing the score start to finish.
Yeah, I'm going to sing all of Monty Norman's Dr. No. Dr. No is my favorite gun barrel. I want to get this out right
Okay,
now.
well, listen. Let's get into the movies.
Let's get some structure on the pod.
Yeah. So we're coming. My point with doing that was like we're coming from different perspectives a little bit on James Bond, of where it was introduced to us in our lives and how familiar we are with it. I watched. Maybe in like 2020 or 2019, I started doing like a rewatch, trying to watch like all the Bond films. So let's get into it. Dr. No, 1962, the first ever James Bond film starring Sean Connery. Buck, do you want to do a little... listen, I'm going to task you with this because you're the Bond guy, but I need you to keep it brief. You want to do a little basic synopsis for the audience for each film?
Sure. Dr. No is kind of one of the more basic Bond detective stories. The British government is investigating, on behalf of the Americans, some satellite chatter that the Americans think is disrupting their Cape Canaveral rockets. Bond is sent in to Jamaica to investigate what happened to the two British operatives and what is going on before the Americans launch their next rocket to the moon. It's very 1960s. Space race. These 60s Bonds are very entrenched in kind of that socio-political climate. It's funny, you're talking about how me and Tim think of Bond. I think of the Bond films as vibe. And I think Dr. No is such an interesting film because it's not, the formula isn't quite there yet, but so much of it is. It's like a very good pilot of a TV show where it's like your characters aren't exactly as you know them 2 seasons in, but the basis is there. The formula is getting made.
It is interesting to think about Bond as having a formula. I think it certainly does. Yeah, this one definitely has shadows of it. It's got echoes of it, but there's a little bit something different going on here. I think it's a very weird film.
It's a really weird film.
I think that's why it's so successful, though, because it's so strange. It feels so different.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing that is so striking about it. I mean, this was none of our first James Bond movie. No. As we established. It wouldn't be as obvious if it was the first one you watched, but going back to it, it's so striking how different it is. And yeah, it is like a pilot in a way. It's good that you mentioned that it's sort of a detective story, because if we're talking about vibes, it is sort of a pulpy detective story for a lot of it until it very suddenly moves towards the end into more of almost a sci-fi fantasy B-movie plus kind of realm.
Don't you mean sci-fact, not science fiction?
Science fact is what the producer of James Bond would always say.
Yeah, I'm with you about the detective thing. I think that's probably the most interesting part about this movie compared to some of the other ones. It's certainly still a spy movie, but it is more of a mystery than a lot of the other ones tend to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
The formula that we're alluding to that ends up getting established is a little bit more like Bond gets sent on a mission. You know what the goal is, and maybe twists and turns ensue, but you're pretty aware of what he's trying to accomplish. This is like, go down there and figure out what is going on, because we don't know.
The story of the Connery movies as a whole, which is what we'll track here, is sort of the birth of the James Bond formula. And I think what's interesting is we start in a place that's very far away from it. Yeah, this sort of detective mystery kind of place. And sort of he kind of slowly uncovers a James Bond movie for the first time in this, in a way.
That's a really good way of putting it, because he while just on a routine investigation that he's almost, he's taking it seriously, but he's dismissive of. And I think that's the best part of Connery's Bond. There's some disdain for his job, which I feel like is very accurate to the books, but he stumbles upon Spectre. And I think I just want to the stuff this movie gets right that I think is part of the formula and is throughout these later movies is Connery's portrayal of Bond. I think is top notch. I think Ken Adams' sets are outstanding and stunning.
I'm going to mention him a lot.
You have music with a little bit of John Barry's influence, if not a lot of, depending on if you're in the British court system or not. And you have some of the Bond girl formula. You have the Bond allies. But really, what my favorite thing with this movie and that I think is so good, and I think every good Bond film has this, is Dr. No as a villain. His flaw is arrogance. And I love that as a villain trait. The reason why Bond's even allowed to be on the island at the end is because Dr. No wants to brag about what he's done. And I think that is such a consistent trait of the Bond foil. And I think that's what this movie gets right.
The arrogance thing is interesting, because as I was watching these movies, one of the things that I really took away is that I maybe think James Bond is the character in cinema history that has the most plot armor of any character I've ever seen.
Yeah,
but
explain that.
We're just like, he just gets out of situations via no skill or no logic. However, in this film, I actually do like that Dr. No has a character flaw that sort of motivates they easily could have killed Bond multiple times in this movie, but there's actually a reason character-wise why they don't. There's many other instances in these other films where there's not really a reason why he gets out of the situation. He just kind of gets lucky. I agree with you that I like in this film that the villain actually has a character flaw built in. That sort of, there's a flaw with them that's like letting him get the upper hand.
Yeah, and he's willing to screw with them in an almost Bugs Bunny way. Like he's so good at getting under their skin.
He's a real scumbag. That is where he excels.
He's a dick. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that we've landed on sort of Bond and Dr. No as the elements of this movie that are sort of the most typical of a Bond movie and have endured, because so much of the rest of the movie feels so, to me, un-Bond, just tonally, which is not necessarily a critique.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's just different.
Yeah, it is really weird. It is really different. But yeah, Connery just is, and he's not even Fleming's Bond really, but he just is Bond. His portrayal changes a little bit here and there in the next few movies, but this is classic Bond in this movie. He's really kind of, in many ways, he has crazy plot armor. He's good at everything basically.
Yes.
But there are certain things, he is a superhero, which is what we like about him. But there are certain things that humanize him. And the fact that he is just like kind of a dick, and he like just has like this laid back, aloof nature to his work is really kind of, I guess he's incredibly charming. He's so cool. What else can you say? Cool in all senses of the word.
I don't find him cool, but I find him chill. I like agree with you about like there's something that like sucks me in about the fact that he's like so nonchalant about everything. And like I get what you mean about like there's an element of cool. But I'm also just like, this guy sucks at most things. Like he doesn't really do a good job at anything in this movie. He kind of just like fucks along until the end of this, but I kind of like that a lot, where it's like,
I mean, and we'll kind of get into it, but a lot of these movies are like that,
100%.
which I actually really enjoy. It's one of my favorite parts of these movies.
The only place I'm going to disagree with you, and I think I like 95% agree with you guys, but I think the reason why people gravitate towards Connery and his portrayal in this film is because we do get glimpses of him not being chill, whether it's the spider in his bed,
for sure,
or when he grabs the bottle of Dom Perignon to attack the guard who's taking Honey Rider. But the moment of seeing him lose his cool and then his ability to regain his cool and make a joke about which vintage of champagne he prefers, even though he was just about to try to kill somebody, I think that is what makes him so cool. He clearly, you get enough of a glimpse of something like his rage or his feelings, but then he goes back into performance mode. And I think that is what's so cool. He goes back into being a schmuck to Dr. No, like almost immediately he's able to flip the switch and be chill again.
It's a trend throughout all of these films, but it is something that I think is probably the most interesting thing about just James Bond in general. Is it's a film character, but also the character in the film is like playing a character. Like he kind of knows that he's
playing James Bond.
Yeah. There is something a little bit meta about like Connery is playing Bond in a way.
Yeah. It's a layer. Yeah. It's a layer to his performance for sure.
But I think that's what makes this film work. If you go back to some of the contemporary reviews, or if you're living in 2026 and you go to the contemporary reviews section of Wikipedia for Dr. No, you'll find that a lot of the reviews for Dr. No were mixed and people were not sure what to make of it. A lot of people were calling it a spoof. They were like, it rides British critics were saying it rides this strange line where it's like, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be funny or if it's supposed to be deadly serious. And I think that razor's edge is what a good Bond film is. And Connery lets you in on the fun.
I have that reaction to a lot of Bond films, honestly. And maybe this is partially, I am consuming these for the first time in more recent years. Like, these aren't things that I consumed at the time they came out, wasn't alive, or even when I was younger. And yeah, the tone of them is a bit strange, and it is a bit confusing sometimes, like what they're trying to be. It's funny you say that people say it's like a spoof. You guys are going to like kill, I'm going to get crucified by you two for this, but like, a lot of these feel like TV movies to me more than like films. I know.
You can't talk about 10
it's just like you can't even take that seriously.
And even Ken Adams sets.
Well, so hold on. I think there's elements of it that feel really cinematic. I love the on location shooting. I think the sets are incredible, specifically in this film too. Once you get to the island at Crab Key, some of those sets are incredible. The jail cell, whatever, that the doctor goes in. When you don't even see Dr. No. Yeah, with the big light overhead. I think that is super visually interesting and cool. And yeah, I mean, the score is amazing in all of these films. There's cinematic elements to them, but like the way that they're constructed and the way that things are put together, and it's just like, okay, I guess they tried to kill him with the spider.
I've read a bunch about the production of this movie, and what I just think is the most interesting thing, when they were screening preview versions of this to test audiences or to family friends, like basically Cubby Broccoli and Saltzman, the reaction that the producers got from the people they screened it for was like, oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. And they were convinced they made a serious spy film. Mm-hmm. So they had a brief panic where they thought they made something goofy, but then they released it and it worked.
Well, I think it's both. I think it is both. There's parts of it that are serious and there's parts of it that are really goofy.
I think for me, the Bond films do ride the line, and some clearly decide one way or another if it's going to be a goofy Bond or a serious Bond. Dr. No, I think for me, I do struggle with the tone because I think they didn't quite figure it out.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And I guess how could they have known?
Yeah, and it's the first one. And in terms of stuff like the tarantula scene, it is kind of campy. This is the question that you come across in these early Bonds is it campy or not? I think most of them know. They maybe have campy moments, but they're elevated movies. I mean, they're sleek movies. They're high production value. But Dr. No is a bit campy.
The only counterpoint I will give that I think just is why this film was so successful is, even though it was a bit of a tonal mess or tonal weird balance in some places, I think the film was very exciting in its editing and its music editing. Just the way they used the Bond theme, the way they cut up and paced Monty Norman's score tracks that they didn't really like, and the way Peter Hunt just gets through scenes. No matter how weird or tonally unbalanced it is, the movie moves at such a clip that I think was rare in 1962. It feels like a radical film.
Peter Hunt is one of the heroes on these movies. I think Peter Hunt, John Barry, and Ken Adam are names I'm going to bring up a lot. The thing that's exciting about these movies, the Connery movies, especially the first three, is we're kind of witnessing the birth of a genre in real time across these movies. And yeah, Peter Hunt is a huge part of that, the way that he handles the action, the way that he's kind of like molding the film as shot to fit what he wanted Peter Hunt, with sort of, dropping frames, impact frames, yes, jump cuts, speeding things up. It's kind of honestly, it's a bit electrifying to watch, like, as someone curious about, the history of cinema as a medium.
I couldn't agree more. And I think what Tim said there of Peter Hunt taking these raw materials and making it into the movie he wanted to make, I don't think that point is really addressed too often. And I think the way he created such electrifying or exciting moments out of stuff that doesn't need to be exciting, like Connery's introduction, like that casino scene, the use of music and the edits in that scene smushed together to make him so fucking cool. That doesn't happen just fully on set. There's something new and fresh there. I think the thing that I feel watching the Connery films over is, I did come to these films very young. I had a very beat up VHS of Dr. No, like the CBS Fox video releases of them from the 80s. that I watched ad nauseum, and there's something very warm about these films to me, and I don't know if that's nostalgia, but there's something in them and there's something in the filmmaking that feels very warm. So I do have a very soft spot for Dr. No. I don't know what Xander thinks, because he's seen Dr. No for the first time yesterday.
No, I actually, Dr. No's one of the ones I saw earlier, to be honest. I watched this one on TV. It's maybe actually the first Connery one I saw. I like it. I don't love it. I feel like it's weird. It's got parts that I think are really good. It's got parts that I think are misses. It's a little bit of a mixed bag of a film for me.
I think that's fair. I think it is mixed bag plus. I think as a movie, it feels to me like a mixed bag, but there is so much that is plus, that is sort of these, extracurricular ways to look at it.
All right, next up on the list, From Russia with Love, 1963.
From Russia with Love is a tricky one because Bond's not even really the main character, nor is he driving the plot, nor does the filmmakers or Ian Fleming's novel seem interested in having him drive the plot. So it's basically Spectre. A few of their operatives have a plan to acquire a Russian lector, which is essentially a decoding device so they can listen to messages. And the way they want to do it is playing the Soviet government against the British government. So basically, Bond springs what he knows is a trap in this movie. And the trap is who is going to get the lector. And in talking about arrogance, what's so fun is the reason why Bond goes along with this, even though he knows he's going to get into a mess, is because it's too good of an opportunity. So everyone's doing a little bit of play acting in this film. Of course, because it's a plan that's a mess, the plan goes awry. But there's three parties involved, and I think this is a really important thing for the Bond formula. You have Spectre, or some third party, playing two world powers, in this case, the Soviet Union and the British government, against each other. And it's the first Bond film we get that, and that's a lot of these next few Connery ones, too.
All right, I gotta say, I was holding my tongue a little bit. I like the music in Dr. No, but man, when John Barry arrives, I was listening to the Dr. No soundtrack today on vinyl, and then I followed it up with the From Russia with Love soundtrack. And I was bobbing my head along to the Dr. No soundtrack. But the second I put the needle down on From Russia with Love, I was like, James Bond has arrived. You cannot overstate how important John Barry is to creating James Bond. I mean, I would almost say, people argue Sean Connery is James Bond or Daniel Craig is James Bond. I think John Barry is James Bond. Like, genuinely.
I think I agree with
genuinely.
That's the quote of the episode, I think.
We talked about in the first one how it's like a detective story, and that's a major part of the plot and the structure and the way that film feels. This one is a proper spy film.
Yeah.
And I love that about this. I think this
Absolutely.
one is a huge improvement in a myriad of ways.
Yeah.
Over Dr. No. Like you brought up, John Barry, I think, is obviously huge. The music in this one is iconic. But there's so many more interesting levels to the plot of this one. I think the fact that what you alluded to, Buck, that they give you the plan from Spectre's perspective, and that Bond's walking into a trap, but Bond also knows he's walking into a trap. He doesn't know what kind. It makes for a really good spy thriller in this one.
I agree. I think that is it's one of those things that is exciting about the Bond character. It's exciting about the philosophy of MI6, who he works for. And I feel like in this film, you get a better sense of M and a better sense of Moneypenny.
Yeah, I mentioned that I kind of see Dr. No as a work in progress, and sort of the series as a whole at this point, and From Russia with Love is still a work in progress. They're not quite at all of the elements that you expect from a Bond movie. They don't have that formula quite down. But I don't think that this movie is itself a work in progress. This movie has a very specific identity. It is a spy movie. It's arguably the only true spy movie in the whole series. And it could have been what all of these movies were like.
It's funny you say that, because I actually really agree with you that it's the most straight spy film.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a big strength here, because I don't know, certainly like the Connery ones for me, I don't think they really excel at the action sequences, but this film isn't relying on that, right? It's relying on this twisty, turny, double crossing, backstabbing, oh, who's playing who knows what information stuff. And I think that plays really, really well. And it plays well with going into what we were talking about Connery in the first film, his nonchalantness, his arrogance, his douchebaggery. I think that elevates those elements here really well.
The exciting part of this is I don't think we ever get a villain in Bond quite like Red Grant again. Red Grant is following Bond around. He's stalking Bond. He's making sure the Spectre part of the plan goes well, and he saves his life in the Romani camp, which is fantastic. I think the fact that this is such an espionage film, or there's so much double crossing, an ensemble of villains, as opposed to really a one big central head villain. I feel like if you take From Russia with Love, the good parts from Russia with Love and the good parts from Dr. No, and you smush them together, that's the Bond identity. To me, From Russia with Love feels very different than, even more than Dr. No, it feels different than the rest of the Bond films to me, mostly because of plot. And we're not with Bond for so much of this movie. We really don't hang out with him for the first 25 minutes.
Yeah, it is a really long opening without actually getting to Bond's part of it.
I mean, this is one of the things I love so much about it. I mean, we're kind of circling around this idea, but to me, Bond is kind of always better when he's on the back foot. You know what I mean? Because Bond is, as we said, he's perfect. He can kind of do no wrong. So when he's in a situation where he doesn't even know what the hell is going on, that is when things get really interesting. And that's what this movie is. And that whole setup to bringing him in, it's this whole organization scheming together just to mess with him. And by the time we finally get to him, it's like, oh man, you got a doozy that you're about to deal with. And so that's kind of the tension of the whole movie. But there is this sort of Hitchcockian idea of suspense in this film. If there's a bomb underneath the table, it's more suspenseful if you know it's there.
Well, do you know what I think is funny as well? They lay out the scheme, and it's a bit of a cheap trick, but I do like it. Not just have we plotted this against, but we got this little nerd. We got this smart nerd, number 3, chess master, dude.
Yeah.
He got the plan. He always gets everything right.
Yeah.
If he makes a plan, it's going to work. It's going off without a hedge.
Yeah.
And I like, too, it's a revenge plot as well, right?
Yeah.
It's coming off of Dr. No. He killed the whitewashed guy. And they're mad about it. And they're specifically going to target him. Like, yes, they want this Lecter, but it's an extra level than that. They also want to get James Bond.
Also, that brings up another interesting thing, which is in the Ian Fleming book, it's just the Russians are the bad guys. But they've added this other layer in the film where it's actually Spectre, and they're pitting the British and the Russians against each other, which, you know, in a movie with a lot of layers, it is this really satisfying extra layer to be like, the obvious thing is that the Russians are the bad guys because it's the Cold War. But what's more interesting is if it's Spectre and it's Blofeld. You know, this is the first movie with Blofeld. It's these shadowy people that we don't even see their face that are sort of messing with things. There's something else I think we got to bring up at some point is sort of the travelogue aspect of them.
Oh my God.
Istanbul most prominently in this one. And it's just stunning to go to these real locations. You know,
it's one of the best parts about these films.
You can really take it for granted because these days movies shoot on location all the time, but the fact
less
that,
and less with every
yeah. But you know, we have decades worth of modern film shooting on location, but at the time, you know, it was not unheard of, but not super common, especially with a movie like this. They just would have shot it on the back lot and call it a day. But to get to see these real places, and, you know, and looking back and getting to see what they look like in the 60s, you know, it's incredible.
Yeah, I do love that as well, because I think it is an important part of the spy genre, which, you know, Bond is a big part of creating that. But just like we're talking about world powers, we're talking about world politics, this scale makes it play so much better.
I feel like a lot of times, and Xander just did it himself, Bond gets dogged on for how whitewashy it is. There's a lot of problematic shit and culturally problematic stuff in these, especially early Bond films, and it doesn't really change till ever. But I think what the Bond films do well is this reverence for the place but you're in.
Absolutely.
Dr. No is very reverent to Jamaica and to Jamaican music, and it really wants you to feel like you're experiencing a different culture. And I think From Russia with Love does that too.
Yeah, I think it's done better in some than in others. I think in this film, there's it's a bit more of a positive spin on the world traveling aspect of it than some other Bond films.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Tatiana Romanova? We didn't really get into Honey Rider in the first film. She's honestly not that big of a part of it. I don't think we can talk about the Bond movies without talking about the Bond girls.
Personally, I think she's one of the most iconic ones, and maybe it's because of my attachment to this movie. This was my first Bond movie, but also she plays such an integral role to the movie. A lot of these other Bond movies, they specifically have a formula where they go through multiple of these quote unquote Bond girls.
Yes.
But this is one where it really is her throughout the movie.
Here's what I really like about the character. Bond's a scumbag with women. Everybody knows it. It's well documented. What I think is great about Tatiana's character is this is kind of just Bond in a nutshell, is he just uses what he's doing for Queen and Country as an excuse to murder, to steal, to get drunk, to take advantage of women. I like that that's what she's doing here as well. She's also tasked with, for her country, this is her mission, this is her assignment. And so she's also approaching this from the, I got to seduce this guy and sleep with this guy and do whatever I can in the name of Russia rather than in the name of England. And so it's a good balance for this problematic part of Bond's character. And I think that that's an interesting thing about her inclusion here. Now, I think they sort of dropped the ball on that in the later half of the movie. But as far as the setup goes, I really like that.
I agree.
But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this is sort of the debate that always comes up with these, again, quote unquote, Bond girls is, you know, are they Bond's equal? And every time a new movie comes out, they're like, for the first time, we have a Bond girl that's Bond's equal. But yeah, sort of the setup in this movie is she is Bond's equal. Like they're both in the same scheme. They're both on the same mission, just from different sides of, you know, the thing, you know, different countries. And that adds a really interesting layer to their relationship, because it's not just the typical woman falls in love with Bond immediately. It's her playing that part.
100%.
Which is really interesting. But yeah, I agree that this is my biggest issue with the movie is at a certain point, she does actually fall in love with him, which is, you know, I think a really satisfying conclusion to that character arc. But we are sort of missing a moment there where because she's at a remove, right? We never really figure out when she actually makes that change of allegiance.
It's a bit of the plot armor thing I'm talking about again, where it's just like the light switch flips because it's what needs to happen to progress it. We don't actually see it happen.
Yeah. And yeah, Bond has plot armor, and Bond is Bond, right? Bond is not really going to change over the course of a Bond movie. The satisfying thing about a Bond movie is him beating the villain. And the way you make that satisfying is you make a villain that you want him to beat. And Red Grant is, you know, he's so menacing and he's such a prick.
He gets the jump on Bond too.
Yeah.
I don't know how many other times in the series, I can't think of one where we know the villain is fooling Bond and Bond doesn't know it.
See, but you know what I like about that sequence is I mean, the train's iconic. It's great. It's one of it's easily the standout bit of this film.
Yeah.
This is maybe one of the only times in all of these movies where we see Bond be like a proper spy. And he actually has a bit of intuition. He actually has a bit
Red
of
wine with fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He actually has a bit of smarts, and you're like, yeah, even if it's for like it's not necessarily a spy thing. It's a culture thing that he catches on to. You go, oh shit, Bond's actually smart. Yeah. He's actually paying attention. Yeah. He's not just like fucking around and finding out.
Bond using his intellect.
Yeah, right. I like that a lot about this sequence.
And what's great is, he uses intellect, and then they use their fists.
Yep. It's a good brawl.
It's a good brawl. I think
one
it's
of the
probably
best fights in the sequence of the series.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the best like hand-to-hand fight in the whole series.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the Bond editing in general. I really like it in this sequence. I think it's really effective here.
Yeah, it works really well.
All right, where do you guys want to rank From Russia with Love?
To me, there's no question. This is an all-time favorite. This is, one of the great spy movies in general. I love this movie. This is easily better than Dr. No. I don't think you can make an argument, Buck, that Dr. No is better. So
are you going to are you going to try, Buck?
I feel like the Connerys are not discussed super in depth. I feel like there's this reverence for them, and these first couple of films are kind of pushed off into some way, and everyone has their own opinion about them. I just feel like these films get kind of thought of as, you know, old and important, and that's kind of what their thing is. But I for me, it's like I do not go back and rewatch these first two as often as I go back and rewatch the rest of the series, because I have often thought of them as less digestible. And I think the only reason why I've thought of From Russia with Love as less digestible is because just I don't like that you don't meet up with Bond in the first 20 minutes. But once you meet up with Bond, this movie's absolutely perfect. That being said, do I prefer Dr. No personally? Yeah.
That's hey, respectable. I'm with you. From Russia with Love, peak.
Yeah,
an excellent Bond film. All right, next up, Goldfinger, 1964. Buck, quick little synopsis.
Bond gets sent to a hotel in Miami, only to realize that he is sent there because his superiors want him to investigate Auric Goldfinger and find out what he's doing, because they think Goldfinger is essentially smuggling gold through borders. And so what starts off as both a revenge plot and a simple investigation of stealing money across borders, Bond uncovers a much larger and much more dangerous plot that takes him from Switzerland to Kentucky.
Can I start with this? This is a crazy way to do a heist film.
Absolutely. Which is what makes this movie iconic.
That's essentially what this is. It's interesting. We've basically gone through the first three movies. They're essentially all a different primary genre.
Yeah.
I understand they're all James Bond. They're all a spy thing in general. But the first one is more of a mystery detective thing. The second one is a proper spy thriller. And this one is really it's a heist movie, but you're following the guy trying to stop the heisters, right?
Yeah,
a lot of heist movies tend to focus on the criminals because it's more fun. Let's be honest. It is more fun. The last movie is like a pretty standard, arguably realistic spy premise. This one is fucking batshit, but it kind of is in some ways better for it, because like that maybe feels more in line, going back to what we were talking about like the camp of Bond, the tone of Bond. How much fun is it? How serious is it?
This is, the Bond tone is fully here, which is, it's a bit goofy. It's not
super goofy.
It's not fully taking everything as a joke, but it's really light and breezy, and things are a little over the top, and you just roll with it because that's the kind of movie it is.
Yeah, and I think so much of the formula comes into play here. It's the first time we have a pre-title sequence that is an action sequence for Bond, and I can't think of a better 10 minutes to get you into James Bond and tell you exactly what it is, that the opening title sequence of Goldfinger. It's shocking how good that sequence is. And it is the first time that we get Barry doing the score fully and writing the opening title sequence. We get Connery at top form knowing how to do it. We get so much more of Bond and the villain sparring off. The laser table sequence. We get the first gadget-laden car. We get the first proper Q sequence. We get a wonderful climax where there's two armies fighting off against each other.
Yeah.
It's just across the board. It's pure entertainment. It's fun. And it's Bond. I think this is the first Bond film proper.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that.
But it is still kind of an outlier in some ways. And I would say the main way is Bond's role. He's kind of just like trapped the whole movie.
Just sits down for most of the movie. He's sitting in a room.
Yeah, but
he plays golf.
But
he gets physically
just a little.
But in this goes back to what I said in the last one. Bond's at his best when he's on the back foot. I fucking love Bond in this movie. This is one of my favorite movies in terms of the Bond side of it, because he is trapped and he is trying to figure out ways to escape, and he has aborted escapes, and he's, sparring with the villain, and the villain is, what this whole movie is about, and their interplay. And Goldfinger, I think, is the Bond villain. He is the all-time Bond villain because he is just the biggest asshole of all time. He's such a like a little piece of shit. He sucks at playing cards. He sucks at golf. He
cheats. He cheats at everything.
It's a great battle of egos.
Exactly.
Because Bond's got an ego and Goldfinger's got an ego. And honestly, neither of them are very good at anything. So there is something kind of iconic about watching them go head to head.
Exactly.
Goldfinger's got this master plan, which is fucking stupid. That's
a great plan.
He's gonna nuke Fort Knox to irradiate gold so that he has the gold supply. It's just insane.
His gold goes up in value.
It's too many steps. Take the gold or destroy it. Like this, like I'll irradiate it for 70.
Well, this is
just bizarre.
This is funny because in the book he stole the gold, and then someone came in and they were like, "You realize how long it would take to steal all that gold because it's so heavy and there's so much of it. It's just improbable." So, but this is why the Bond movies and the Bond books are different things, because the Bond movies say, okay, the solution to that is he sets off a dirty bomb.
Yeah.
And that's just so incredibly Bond. Like, it's so over the top. It's kind of clever just in terms of it's like such a fun and funny way to like think of a villain plot. And it has its own internal logic that works in the movie itself.
Yes, I agree with that. It's one of those things where you go like, this is ridiculous, but it's fun. It's fun as
just
shit.
Like, it's the kind of thing that you go to see a Bond movie for. You want to see, what is the villain up to this time? What kind of crazy shit are they up to? And this is, to me, like one of the best villain schemes, if not the best.
Can I pin something that I think encapsulates my feeling about this movie, which is they do the Mastersons real dirty in this movie. But Tilly Masterson's reaction to the smoke screen is how I feel about this movie. Just like the glee, what the fuck is happening face that she gives when Bond like looks at her and presses a button and a smoke screen comes out of his cool car. And she's just like, this is crazy. Like, what is this? I'm like, that's kind of how I feel about the entire film. This is crazy. What is this? But I'm smiling. It is a pretty fun.
I've never heard that point brought up, but I think I was about to ask you guys what makes this the definitive Bond film in so many ways for so many people and so much of time. I actually think you just answered it, Xander, because the movie tells you how it wants you to feel about it. It invites you to have fun. There's borderline comedy sequences in this movie, like when Bond is changing on the plane and trying to get a message out.
Yes.
And I think when you summed it up right there, it's like how Tilly feels towards Bond is how we should feel towards the movie. And it really invites you to join in.
You know, they're really accessible movies, even as things that were, you know, from 60 years ago. And yeah, I think that's sort of where they figured out the tone.
They're taking it a lot less seriously now.
They're taking it a lot less seriously, but there are things about it that they take seriously. They take the filmmaking seriously. You know,
yes.
John Barry is, you know, in fine form on this one. And Ken Adam, I think, you know, the Fort Knox set is just absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, very cool.
You know, they're firing on all cylinders. You know, Connery he's nonchalant as always, but he's, you know, it's a very fine-tuned nonchalance, and there are moments where he's in stressful situations. I mean, I think the ticking bomb at the end of it is such a great Bond moment. Yeah, it's a classic for a lot of reasons. It would take a long time, I think, to go into every single one of them. I'm
really glad that we all seem to agree on it. I mean, for me, this is one of my favorite Bond films, period. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, I would rank this highly.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
I think the thing that's tough to explain with Goldfinger is I think Goldfinger is this film that's greater than the sum of its parts. Because I think there's some thing that doesn't feel, it's, even though this is a travelogue, you go to Switzerland, you go to Kentucky, it doesn't feel as pretty as the other Bond films, but there's just this innate sense of excitement in every scene. And there's not really a bad or slow moment in this. From the pre-titles to Miami, to Bond being a tool about brandy, to the golf, to the laser table, to Odd Job, to Kentucky. There's just this wonderful verbal sparring, and I think we can't talk about the verbal sparring energy without talking about Pussy Galore, who might be the best Bond girl. I would say yes.
I don't think I agree she's the best, but she's got to be in the conversation. Certainly, certainly the most iconic name. And I think
What do you mean?
Well, see, Buck,
remember when I said this movie does not take itself seriously? Here we go.
I think Honor Blackman is fantastic. I think her chemistry with Connery is really great. You know, they pair Connery with a lot of women in these movies, but they don't always have really chemistry. But I think Honor Blackman absolutely does. And in terms of, you know, talking about is the Bond girl, the Bond woman, is she Bond's equal? I think they set
got it.
They set Pussy Galore up certainly to be his equal in many ways. You know, she's tough. She's got, you know, her flying school. She can put Bond on his ass. You know, she's a really great personality.
It's such a pain point of this movie, the ending, because she's so iconic throughout the film. It's a great foil for him, almost more so than Goldfinger in a lot of ways. And this is one of those, like, A, it's problematic, but B, it's just not very good plotting, where this is like my plot armor thing with Bond. It's just so convenient. It's so unsatisfying. It's so unearned. And it's so shitty the way that the resolution between the two of them goes, where he forces himself onto her. She's set up to be such like his equal until it's just all thrown out the window in just a really poor scene.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? Yeah, it's definitely the worst aspect of the movie. It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. It's problematic.
The thing that sucks about it for me is that it's so integral to the plot as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it is the resolution of like how they beat the bad guy.
And you don't know that till the end of the film. And
sure.
Bond even makes like a joke about appealing to her maternal instincts.
Yeah.
It's pretty much every step of the way. It is the lowest.
It's one of the low points of the series, honestly.
But man, I gotta tell you, the third act of this movie, once they get into the heist, and then sort of like, I guess you could almost call it like the counter heist of all the soldiers.
Sure.
You know,
waking up.
Yeah.
This is
an excellent twist.
This is one of the most satisfying climaxes of any Bond movie. The way that its movement is completely dictated by John Barry's score.
One of my favorite moments is in this sequence when Goldfinger has a switchable uniform.
Yes.
And is able to turn into a general and to get away. It's all... Every single step of this climax is perfect.
It's a really, really fun sequence. Like you said, the set is great, but just, it does catch you off guard. It is one of those things where in this sequence, we don't know everything going into it, and you're watching it play out in real time, and you're being surprised in real time in really fun, unique ways. To your point, I like what you said, the counter heist. I actually love that as a description for it. Not something you often see.
And if there's any defense of sort of the Pussy Galore,
there's not
180, it's sort of the fact that we don't get a concrete answer about her allegiance going into the heist is sort of this open question that allows for that great twist.
What the fuck were they all thinking in that moment? Because it even seems like, for Bond's problematic stuff, it even seems beyond the pale for that.
I agree with you. It's a step above.
Anyways, back on track. I love the climax, but also what's great about this is it, you know, talking about the Bond formula, it introduces the secret second climax, which is, you know, on the plane.
Goldfinger gets away. Yep.
And that's such a fun, because I don't know, I just love it when I have a really satisfying third act climax. I'm like, wow, that was so fun. And then it's like, here's some more ice cream for you. You know, here's some more fun stuff. And of course, the way Goldfinger dies, you got to kill a Bond villain in a really satisfying way. And this is, you know, classic, ridiculous.
It's the best one so far, getting sucked out the plane.
Yeah. And again, it's like setting the formula. It's like, what if we killed Goldfinger this way? And then every movie after, it's like, how do we top this?
Yeah, you get the second climax. There's no dead space in this movie. It's a lovely ending of Bond and Pussy Galore going under the parachute to not get rescued, continuing that trope. I think the other thing that is amazing that Hamilton did, and the story's been told 1,000 times, is Hamilton created the dynamic of Bond and Q in this film.
Yeah.
Because as they're Desmond Llewellyn will tell this story in many interviews, but he's like, as they're rolling the first take, Desmond plays it as very affable and very deferential. And then Guy Hamilton stops him and says, no, you hate Bond. He has no respect for your work.
As you should.
And you get, yes. And it's so funny because to Xander's point, Bond is a sociopath. He's an asshole. He's a schmuck. And it seems like the only person who treats him that way is Q. I think we get like a full range of character emotions. Even I love the little look that the, I think it's an American agent who actually stops the bomb at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Gives Bond when it stops on 007. The movie knows it's cute. And then it also wants to roll its eyes at it. It's this wonderful, lovely balance carried by Barry's score. We now know what gold sounds like. I think ranking this movie anywhere above the #1 spot so far would be as bad as listening to the Beatles with earmuffs.
Dude, I had that in my notes. Like, why the Beatles hate?
Yeah, this movie's perfect. #1.
You're putting it #1?
Yeah.
Tim?
In the words of Blofeld, #2.
#2 for you. I'm sorry to you, Buck, but I also would put From Russia above. Definitely put this #2.
Are you guys fucking kidding?
No.
We're gonna put From Russia with Love above Goldfinger. This list is this.
This is not even that big a hot take, Buck, because Goldfinger is probably the general consensus #1 Bond movie amongst fans, but From Russia with Love often gets that spot too. Like, it's not that unusual.
I'm the least Bond guy here, right? Here's my take on it. Part of it is the third act turn is really killer in Goldfinger, killer negative, right? It really hurts the movie. But I think that From Russia with Love, it's maybe not as Bond, but it's a little bit more coherent and it's a little bit more of, it knows what it is. It's in that spy thriller vibe. And I think it does a really great job at it.
I think Goldfinger is a better paced movie than Russia too.
Well, you're mad about that first 20 minutes.
I am mad about that first 20 minutes.
All right, well, the rats have spoken.
I will say that I will concede that I do think the train sequence of From Russia with Love is probably the best thing in any of the Connery films. And I do think while I will enjoy watching Goldfinger more overall, and I'll definitely come back to Goldfinger overall, the train sequence in From Russia with Love is maybe the peak of Bond period, I think could be argued.
It is one of my favorite Bond bits. All right, next up, Thunderball, 1965. Buck, hit us with the synopsis.
Spectre steals some nuclear weapons and holds the world hostage. And Bond gets sent to the Bahamas to go on vacation. Or really just to check out some soldier's hot sister. They're going to send Bond someplace. And he's like, I don't know. This soldier's sister is so sexy. I feel like I should go there and deal with that.
I got to say, I like that you mentioned vacation, because obviously we talk about how these movies are travelogues, but this movie feels like a vacation movie. It does feel like he's really on vacation for the whole movie. He starts at the retreat.
What the fuck?
And
is
then
that
he's just hanging out in the Bahamas, you know.
I have long had a disdain for this movie. As a child, I found this movie to be very boring. And I think it's because the beginning of this movie is quite boring. I think the underwater fight is quite boring. I think the middle is kind of boring. I also think we talk about a lot about the fast editing. I think this is a movie that you can feel the seams of. You can feel it being rushed. Even to the fact that there's two different prints of this film that are official with different music in the end credits.
Obviously, we live in a time where movies have a very different pace. People have different attention spans now. I think probably a lot of people, if they're not familiar with older movies, if they went back and watched any of these movies, they would call them all slow, which I think is not true. But Thunderball is definitely a slow movie. Thunderball is a movie that, yeah, it's rare that a Bond movie could maybe be called boring, but it does verge on that at moments.
But I didn't give my that being said. I saw this in theaters last year.
Me too.
And I very much enjoyed it. It's very beautiful. It's very lush. It's very fun. And I think if you meet this movie on its terms, which it's almost like an event. It's an event movie. Xander used the analogy that Bond is like a TV series. These early films feel like TV. And this is a very special episode of Bond, and I feel like sometimes when you go big, you get a little dull, and I think that's just what this film is. But it's, if you meet it on its own terms, it's very enjoyable.
I think you're spot on with, like, it got a little bit too big for its britches here. It's a good setup. I like that Spectre's back. I don't think I mentioned this. I like that we took a break from Spectre for Goldfinger. Just this random ass criminal villain, right? He's got his own agenda. He's got his own plan. I like that. I think it's good. Bond shouldn't only be fighting Spectre. But also, I think Spectre's a compelling organization villain. There's a lot of intrigue there. We never got to see the face of number one, like what else is going on. And I like their plan of, we stole a nuke. It's pretty standard, but it works. They hold the world hostage. They want money. They want $1 billion or whatever the fuck.
I mean, it's standard because this movie made it standard.
100%.
This is the supervillain plot. The stealing a nuke.
For every movie that has come afterwards.
The plot is good. The pacing lets this movie down so much. The retreat in the beginning, once again, we've got a repeat of Pussy Galore awfulness, but also just it adds so little to the overall film. It takes so long to get going.
I love that. I love that stuff though. Bond on the rack, and then Kim trapping the Spectre agent in like essentially like a washing machine, a dryer.
This is like
it's so stupid.
And then somehow he gets out.
It's so funny, Bucky, that you brought up that I said that some of these feel like TV movies to me. This is like maybe one of the chief ones that does, where like this stuff you're talking about feels more like a TV episode than a film. It's just like random little bits. And then a lot of my feeling around that isn't necessarily the production value, because we've been talking about how incredible these sets are, these locations that they're shooting on. Visually, these movies are really interesting and really compelling. But I do take issue with a lot of the action and a lot of the action editing in these movies.
I think this is the worst. I think this is the worst edited and directed action in the series.
Fully agree with you, which is why I'm bringing it back to this, because I fully agree with you. I like Hong Kong cinema. They use speed ramping. They cut out frames. But there's more of an art to it than what's being done here. This is just like, so many of these scenes are just like people who clearly can't do anything flailing around, and they just sped it up to make it seem like something was happening here. This does not feel cinematic to me at all. And then you brought up like the water fight at the end. I'm like, oh my God, how long is this?
And also just the boat sequence too at the end, where they're fighting on the boat as the
yes,
the rear projection behind the boat keeps going faster.
I think this one is kind of where some of the seams start to show. And I think, they got higher on their own supply. They kept going bigger, and this is the biggest one yet. And they have all this underwater sequence. It's really the underwater stuff is the biggest issue. And I get it, because it's gorgeous. This is massive groups of people firing harpoons at each other underwater. It's gorgeous, but
it sucks.
They left too much of it in.
I wrote down in my notes, underwater Civil War ass fight. Just dumb idiots walking at swimming at each other underwater, shooting each other with harpoons, and then just flailing around like morons. It is so uninteresting to watch for as long as it is. Maybe if you did it for a short bit, you could have gotten away with it, but it is a lot of the same types of shots of just someone going underwater.
Surprisingly, though, this climax can be done worse. And never say never again. It is done worse.
You have no idea.
But I do like watching it. I just don't. I don't think this is a movie I come back to be like, oh man, what am I gonna do? I got like some time to kill tonight and I want to watch a Bond. I'm never really in the mood to watch Thunderball, even though I don't hate it and I do think it's fun. I don't gravitate towards it because I think it does feel slow. The writing just isn't there. I love the cast of characters here. I like Adolfo Celli as Largo. I like Fiona Volpe. Everyone's very dynamic. Everyone's very beautiful. I love the scene of Bond getting driven around. But it's just somehow these scenes manage to not go anywhere.
Yeah, it's a messy movie. I mean, we're kind of dogging on it, but this is kind of a popular for Bond fans. It's kind of a popular Bond movie, and
is it?
Yeah. I think it tends to rank fairly highly. I mean, maybe it's more just sort of like the iconography. I think is a big part of it. I mean, I think getting that first that big scene in the Spectre layer with all the different numbered agents. That's so iconic. And
the electric chair.
Yeah, and
burn that guy up.
Largo's eye patch and the Spectre ring and
the pool of sharks.
One of the worst instances of plot armor in any Bond movie, where he just swims out of the other side of the pool and no one stood there.
What the fuck were they thinking on this movie?
I don't know.
I think there is some. I think there is some really good stuff in here, though. I do love Adolfo Celli. One of I think the funniest moments in any Bond movie is when they're skeet shooting. And
it's so good.
Yeah, Bond just he's explaining how it works to Bond, and then Bond just does it very casually. I love this trope that sort of established in Goldfinger. This Bond does sports. Bond faces the villain in sports, and it's a really fun bit of plotting, because it's like, well, how do you have more confrontations with people who should be trying to kill each other? So you have sort of the early scene where there's still the pretense that Bond isn't a secret agent, and they're, doing this competition, which is sort of like this not so subtle, sizing up of egos or whatever else you want to say they're sizing up. That's sort of the casual way he's so cavalier with, going into those situations and talking to Domino and everything. It's really satisfying bit of Bondness, which brings me to my favorite aspect of this movie. One of my favorite characters in any Bond movie, Fiona Volpe, played by Luciana Paluzzi. She's just so much fun. It's a bit, it's Bond getting a bit meta, which is kind of crazy so early on, where she's, joking about Bond being able to turn. She
calls out the pussy galore moment.
Yeah, exactly. And she's just she's really playing it up so much, but not in a way that's too hammy. And she's just really delightful.
I think Xander and I are dogging on this one hard, but I want to be clear. This is a super fun, well-crafted film with great sequences. There's so much fun to be had in this. And I think this movie continues what Goldfinger exceeded at, which is the invitation to continue to have fun. I think John Barry is on great form. Style points wise, all cylinders. Bond's outfits are good. Everyone's outfit's good. The bathing suits, the dresses, the wetsuits. This is my sister's favorite Bond film, or one of her favorite Bond films, for whatever it's worth.
It's a classic, like, blockbuster that's gotten too big and it's a bit messy, but it's eye candy throughout. I think you're absolutely right.
We're talking about how, like, maximalist of a film this is, right? There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a giant plane sequence. There's all these underwater sequences. They're on multiple locations. There's shark tanks. There's so many things. And not every single element in this is reflective of exactly like your best foot forward. But there's a lot of stuff that is being conceived of and executed by artists that are trying to create some sort of cinematic experience.
Absolutely.
So Thunderball at the bottom of our list.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Well, no, actually, maybe
we're not putting it above Dr. No. I think Dr. No is much more satisfying.
Maybe this is just personal bias, but I think I probably would put it above Dr. No. And the reason why is I'm a Bond fan, and Thunderball to me is a Bond movie, and Dr. No just kind of doesn't feel like a Bond movie to me.
I disagree with the conceit that Dr. No doesn't feel like a Bond film. I think Dr. No overall is a better paced film. I think Connery is better in it. I think there's some more interesting elements in Dr. No. At a given day, if I was told I could watch Dr. No or Thunderball, I would choose Dr. No.
I'm going to go Thunderball on the bottom. I really like the setup of Thunderball, and I think it's quite let down by the pacing of the movie. And Dr. No is weirder, and maybe it is less Bond. I think maybe you're right about that, Tim. But I think as someone who's not as big of a Bond fan, that's less of a detriment to it to me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I can't really argue that hard for it, because, Dr. No really does have such a unique place that I don't want to discount. To me, Thunderball is just a bit more classic.
It's something with Dr. No that I just felt on this rewatch where it just feels special to me, and it's more of a vibe thing.
All right, next up on the list, You Only Live Twice, 1967. Buck, quick little synopsis.
Spectre steals an American spaceship, and Spectre steals a Soviet spaceship and makes both governments think each other stole their spaceships. So Bond has to prove that Spectre stole the spaceships before we go into thermonuclear war. I love this plot. Dude, I love You Only Live Twice.
Me too. This plot is excellent.
This is the good shit. This brings me, we could talk about nostalgia, but like those scenes of the spaceships with that John Barry, that brings me right back to being a kid and just like so wide-eyed and being like, wow, what is going on? This is so cool.
The guy yelling just as he gets his line.
I literally, my first thing written is R.I.P. Chris. Just floats out into space. Brutal, dude. Brutal. Can I start with this on this one? I'm with you. Great plot. I rewatched all 6 of these. This is one of the films I had only seen once before. This is the only film that I rewatched this time that I think I liked more on this rewatch than I did before.
Let's go.
Every other film I think I liked less than the last time I watched them. For whatever reason, this one didn't really grab me as much the first time. I was like, damn, this one's actually quite good. I think it has a reputation of not being very good. It
has a bad reputation, which doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it kind of does.
Let me say, the race shit, hard to swallow a little bit. Specifically, the become Japanese, not great. There's no getting around it. But everything that surrounds that in this film, I think is kind of like elite Bond stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you're talking about the space plot. I love that. That's like peak Bond, supervillain, random pinning cut. We're stealing spaceships with a giant spaceship that opens up. Whatever. I like it.
Yeah. I don't know if it really comes from this, but I just always want to acknowledge that this script comes from Roald Dahl, who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach, who also wrote the script to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, another Ian Fleming book, but a far more fantastical family adventure. So there's always a degree whenever I come onto this one where I'm like, yeah, a spaceship opening and eating other spaceships and then hiding in a volcano layer. Like, oh, I don't know who deserves the credit for that. I mean, I know, again, some of this comes from the book, but the You Only Live Twice book is so far removed from what this film is. And it's so fantastical and so fun. I also hear a lot that Connery's performance is dogged on, and I don't know where you feel here. I think he's okay in this movie.
It's not his best.
It's not his best. He's starting to check out, but I don't think it really sinks the movie. I do, Roald Dahl, yeah, very famous children's book author, also very famous racist person. We should get the scene where they turn Bond Japanese is extremely insensitive, to say the least. Obviously, there are some problematic stuff in this movie, but this film is, I think, such a adoring look at Japan. It's like practically an advertisement by the Japanese tourism board. Japan looks absolutely stunning. And, if you look at sort of the history of kind of racist movies, usually the race is the bad guy. In this movie, the Japanese people are the good guys. You see the Japanese Secret Service, they're arguably more advanced than the British. And the Japanese agents, Tiger Tanaka and Aki and Kissy Suzuki, they save Bond's ass on multiple occasions. So, you may be surprised to see that actually the Japanese fucking kick ass in this movie, and the ninjas at the end of the movie. Man, when I was a kid, I thought those were the absolute coolest guys in existence.
Is this the best climax in a Bond film?
Maybe.
It's possible. It's very possible.
I will say, there's a lot of good stuff. There's some bad stuff, but there's a lot of good stuff in this movie. I think that the climax does a huge amount of heavy lifting for this movie.
Yes,
I agree.
I'll agree.
The volcano lair sequence is so peak. It's so iconic for James Bond. The set design is incredible. The sheer scale of it and just the number of people they have fighting. Like,
can I say this?
Yeah.
I think the volcano lair is maybe my favorite set in film history. I don't know if I can think of one that comes close for me personally. Falcon? I think the sheer scale.
This guy doesn't even like Star Wars books.
The sheer scale of the volcano lair, and also just like the really interesting style, modernist style to it too. It's gorgeous to look at, and the fact that they have such a big sequence that plays out in it, and there's no special effects trickery that they have to do. It's just this one giant fucking set, and obviously made better by the fact that it's in a literal volcano, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the moment where we bring up another new director. We went Terrence Young, Guy Hamilton, Terrence Young, and now Lewis Gilbert. And Lewis Gilbert did 3 known as the Monorail trilogy, where essentially this Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker have the same plots. Do we give credit to Lewis Gilbert for some of the grandioseness in this film that works so well? Because it's funny, because I think in some ways Thunderball is a bigger Bond film than this is, but yet this feels more lush and grand to me.
Yeah, and again, I think the final sequence is doing a lot of heavy lifting for that. But to give him credit for his direction, I've slagged off the movies a little bit for not being great action movies, not being super well done. I think that this film is a real elevation in the level of action. The way that the scenes are choreographed, the way that the scenes are filmed, the way that the scenes are edited. For me, they feel a lot more put together. There's less tricks, there's less bullshit that they're doing to try and make them look like they're cool. And they're actually just designing good sequences. I think the fight in the office is good. I think obviously the volcano battle at the end is great.
Fight in the office with the Rock's
dad.
Yeah. Is that really true? I didn't know that.
It's his dad, the Rock's dad.
Yeah,
that's funny. I didn't know that.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
But I like that. I like that fight. I think that's actually a well-designed fight.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on there. I think the fighting and the music work really well. I really like
100%.
John Barry's score here. I love the main theme, which is
Nancy
used as
Sinatra.
like a love theme.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think the cast of characters is amazing here, but which helps also with the action. But this has one of my favorite shots in any action on sequence, which in theory wouldn't be a good action beat. But when Bond is investigating at the marina and he runs on the roof and you get this helicopter shot.
I love that shot. Yeah, it's great.
It pulls out and you have this amazing rendition of You Only Live Twice over it while Bond's fighting all these guys in wide on the roof. I've never seen anything else quite like that in an action sequence. It does the opposite. It moves so far out, but there's something so grand and exciting about it.
It's just pure cinema, right? Like it's like,
yes,
it's such a great, like Bond's in this fight and then we're zooming out and we're like, wow, look at this. He's on this huge roof. There's all of these guys. We're zooming out and we're able to see all of these guys and we're able to see the city. And it's just,
there's a real sense of scale throughout this entire movie.
It's like, it's just, you have to, this is the kind of thing that you have to go to the movie theater to experience.
Not to repeat myself, but like a lot of the other stuff feels like TV movies, specifically like the action. That doesn't. That feels like cinema. Like you said, that's like a cinematic moment. This is like this big scale. And it's just a throwaway action sequence in the middle of the movie. It's not the climax. It's not, this giant set piece. It's just, a little bit of fighting when they're trying to get to the marina.
Speaking of little things, Little Nelly.
Yes, I knew we were going to go here.
Was the coolest fucking thing in the world.
Another really cool action sequence in this one.
But it's cinematic too. The way they reveal the helicopter showing up as shadows behind Bond.
Yeah, very cool.
I miss how these early Bond films use the original recording of the Bond theme. But I love that in the Little Nelly sequence, we get like a poorly, sloppily edited version of the original recording of the Bond theme. And I love that continues through Majesties. But then we don't get that again. And if I had one request for Denny, it's to set a sequence to the original recording of the Bond theme in the next Bond film. I think it's an underutilized trope.
Yeah, this movie has a lot of great set pieces. I mean, I think this is typifying like what became the main mode of blockbuster filmmaking, which is come up with 4 or 5 major set pieces and then
loosely tie them together.
Think of a way to tie them together.
Stealing spaceships.
Yeah. And I think the set pieces in this movie are great, especially the climax, which kind of blows everything else out of the water. I think the villain plot is great with the spaceships. I think the actual A to B narrative to get them to the volcano
it's not quite there.
Is kind of bad.
It's not great.
Like,
it's not great.
It's pretty nonsense, but it moves at a clip, which really helps. You almost don't even notice it.
Well, I think in contrast to Thunderball, it's like, no, there's tons of problems that You Only Live Twice. I think You Only Live Twice has some very slow moments. It doesn't have, I mean, I love the sequence of Bond faking his death in the beginning. but it kind of comes off to a slow start, even though I do love the line, he always wanted to die on the job. I think this is unlike Thunderball. I think somehow all this stuff adds together. I think it's assisted by Tiger and Aki, and just every scene surprises you, whether it's Bond falling through the ground in an old subway station or going to ninja school or even watching Henderson die. I love the sequence where Henderson gets stabbed to the wall. There's moments in here that just are propulsive, even if it doesn't quite make too much sense.
The connective tissue is not there, but it sort of doesn't matter when the action is to a certain level and the set pieces are to a certain level. And I think that in a lot of the other Bond films, the set pieces are not always to the level that they are in this one. So when they have those script issues for me, they're a bit weaker. Whereas this one, I feel like even just getting to the volcano battle, a lot is forgiven in terms of plot structure. When you're just like, holy shit, this is incredible.
I gotta say, another negative. There's always going to be an issue with the female lead. Yeah. I really like Aki. I think she and Connery have great chemistry, and then she dies, and then they replace her with Kissy Suzuki, who just doesn't really do much.
Wear clothes.
Doesn't really do much. She wears a bikini, which is great, I guess. If that's what you're into. And yeah, it's kind of a sore spot. It's kind of like a pillar of the movie that's missing in a way, if you think about it, where it's just like we're going into the final third with this character that we just don't really have any attachment to.
There's some part of me that always finds the Bond marriage sequence amusing, but it's like, it's weird. It's bad punchlines. And then it's like, oh, look, thank God he gets to marry some beautiful woman who then we don't learn anything about. And even that being said, I do like the Aki's death sequence.
Yeah, it is pretty good with the string and the poison. I mean, that's definitely a lasting image. Speaking of lasting images, we gotta talk about Blofeld, Donald Pleasance with the scar in his eye, finally revealing Blofeld.
Very iconic villain.
Yeah.
And you know what that sequence has as well with his reveal? My favorite Bond gadget of all time, the exploding cigarette.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like how smoking is discussed heavily in this movie, but it's a great gadget. Pleasance is perfect as Blofeld. I like Helga Brandt too, even though I wish she was in the movie more, and I know she's just a budget Fiona Volpe, but I still like her.
Yeah, I agree. Iconography is such an important part of these movies. I think it's a lot of the reason why they do still endure to this day and why they were such a cut above the other stuff coming out at the time, because James Bond wasn't the only super spy whatever going on in the 60s. These movies, the plot's silly, maybe the writing's not great, but there are all of these different elements that are really, they're acting like this is the most important film of all time, and they're making iconic images like the Ken Adam volcano layer or the makeup on Blofeld, or even just the suit that he wears.
And I could rewatch You Only Live Twice over and over again. As a child, this was my childhood rankings. I always find amusing for the Bond films, but at points, this was my favorite Bond film of all time.
I only watch it twice. All right, where do you guys want to rank it?
To me, this is a very clear third.
I would agree with that.
I think
great. It's unanimous.
It's sounding, I'm not surprised based on our conversation. I thought going into this would be a hot take of mine, but
I liked it a lot less the last time I watched it, but this time I took more focus on the things that I do enjoy about it and ignored the bad plot elements of it.
The direction is just good.
The direction is very good.
Fresh.
It's very good.
And the performances are good. I often think of the shot where you have the guy like doing a sword straight into the camera. And I'm just like, yeah, the movie is doing exciting things with the camera, behind the camera, with the set design.
It's a great shout.
And it's goofy, but we're talking about James Bond. I think it is goofy. So fuck yeah, let's put this as number 3.
All right. Last up on the list for today, Diamonds Are Forever, 1971.
Forgetting the events of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Sean Connery reincarnates as James Bond, out to get revenge on Blofeld by punching through every set Pinewood had up at the time until he finally strangles a girl with her bikini top to find Blofeld, who he discovers is cloning himself, and then has a plot to laser all of the nuclear arsenals of the world. The plot doesn't really matter in Diamonds Are Forever. I would just say, think of Diamonds Are Forever as Blofeld in Las Vegas, and Bond has to stop him.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
This one is not great. This one feels like a parody.
It's so amazing to me that Guy Hamilton has done 4 Bond films, and the ups and downs of his 4 Bond films are alarming to me. Like, knowing that they brought him back to capture the Goldfinger magic, and then this is what they release. And then also knowing that he does Live and Let Die next, which is one of my favorites, and I think Live and Let Die is amazing. And then he does Man with the Golden Gun after that, which I don't think is amazing.
He's in Every Other Kind of Guy.
He feels like an Every Other Kind of guy. That being said, this is an easy movie to make fun of. There's a lot of stuff I like in it. I watched this one a lot as a kid. I felt like this was on Spike or TNN a lot when we were kids in the Bond marathon. I feel like Diamonds was on frequently on a Sunday. So I feel I've seen this one so many times. I think this is one of Shirley Bassey's best opening songs. I like Jill St. John, and I like Jimmy Dean when he says "Baha," and it's fine.
Yeah, I think parody is maybe not too far off from it. It's funny, this was the second one I ever saw, and when I was a kid. From Russia with Love and Diamonds Are Forever, they were right up there. They were equally good. And then, as time goes on, one of them stayed up there and the other one dropped down. Guy Hamilton is back. He injected a lot of humor into Goldfinger. And I think he maybe takes it too far here. It's basically a comedy movie.
Yeah.
It is campy in a way that the other movies, as ridiculous as they got, they didn't quite fall into that.
Is this the campiest Bond?
I think it might be. Yeah, I think it might be.
He dresses up as a clown and Octopussy, but yet that is a more serious scene than I think anything in this movie.
Do you know what the big problem with it is? Like, Sean Connery is abject in this. Like, he's quite bad in this.
Yeah, I think that's one of the bigger issues is the movie takes on the cadence of Sean Connery, which is I'm over it. Basically.
Yeah. It's a real phone-in performance.
Yeah, which is tough. It does kind of feel like it kind of trudges along at times. But I do have a complicated relationship with the movie because it is so stupid, but it is that classic thing we're talking about where it's like it invites you to make fun of it, basically. It lets you enjoy how stupid it is, and that can be a tricky thing, and it doesn't always work. But it is a movie that it's easy to have fun watching the movie even when it's not good, and perhaps especially when it's not good.
It has a premise that should be good, right? And you were talking about Guy Hamilton coming back. I wasn't even paying attention to that fact that it's the same as Goldfinger, because literally in my notes I have that this feels like it's kind of like another go at a Goldfinger style Bond movie. Yeah. That should actually work. A diamond smuggling organization, right? Okay. On the ground, we're trying to figure out like where these diamonds are going. Everybody connected to the diamonds is dying. There's an element of intrigue there to kick you off and to start you with. And I think that where it goes is just wildly unsatisfying, but then also the way that it goes is just not very well done at all. Like, just ends up being a lot of like poorly delivered dialogue from Sean Connery, and then half-assed car chases is like kind of what the movie is.
The car chase in Vegas, while there are some great shots where you can see all of Vegas watching the car chase, yeah. I don't understand how they fucked up the I don't even care. I do love how they do this tricky shot in the edit where they show that the car changes which two wheels it's on. I'm always curious why they even bothered, because I think if you just cut to see the car go through and then cut and it's on two other wheels, I don't think anyone would give a shit.
Probably not.
I do think Connery is good when he meets Tiffany Case. I also think he's good when he's pretending to be Klaus Hergesheimer and is getting like annoyed at this guy who's trying to throw him out of the satellite room. This is gonna sound dumb. I like this film more than Thunderball. I think that is going to get me in hot water. I think this film is fun and funny, and I like the characters. I like the funeral home guys, and I like seeing Connery walk around with a little bit more of a gut, still being Connery. There's something in this movie that just shouldn't work, but it does. Also, Winton Kid.
I do love Winton Kid. The movie, I would say, doesn't really work on most levels, but it is an interesting failure in many ways. I think it's kind of an appealing movie in the canon. I think it has a unique place. It's Bond in the 70s. It feels very 70s. It feels a bit sleazy in some ways. Maybe that's just the Vegas aspect, but it takes on the character of Vegas in many ways, which is not necessarily a good thing, but it is an interesting thing. And it doesn't really have any of my favorite set pieces or action sequences. I don't dislike the car chase or the moon buggy chase or those sorts of things, but
they're
it's
not
missing
standouts.
It's really missing any superlative that, I could throw a superlative at any of these other movies. Even as the movie is really ridiculous and over the top, there is some level of groundedness to this movie that some of the other ones don't have. Like it's a bit more tangible, like the concept of being in a coffin about to be set on fire, or having a scorpion put down your back, or some of these other sorts of things. It is a bit more ground level in a way. It may be less Bond because of that, but it does add an interesting flavor to the overall tapestry of the series, if that makes sense.
I think sleazy was the use. It's very good to describe this. I think that's it. It feels slimy. It feels let's put together. I think it's the best. It's the worst fashion in any Bond film.
Yeah, probably.
But everyone's on the same page, which is what I think is so funny about it. Xander, I don't know. What do you think of this thing?
I mean, I think it's kind of a mess, but there are certainly elements that I think are okay. I think Tiffany Case is actually, in the Connery era, one of the better Bond girls. It's the problem that they all have, where they maybe start off pretty good and then they absolutely drop the ball on the potential for it.
Yeah, I think she's actually like, her in the climax of this movie is like one of the worst.
Yeah, on the oil rig is pretty
yeah,
bad.
It's just like everything that any like critic of the Bond fan would say in terms of how it treats women as just being like these ditzy idiots who are just waiting for.
Well, I was about to say why I think she's particularly good in the beginning is that she's involved in this of her own volition, right?
Yeah.
She's a businesswoman. She's got her role to play in this, and she doesn't give a shit about Bond. She just cares about getting her cut of the diamond money. Like that's what she's in it for. The oil rig thing is whatever. It's not a terrible climax of it.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's a bit of trying to recreate what they did in the volcano, just to incredibly less effect. I think the score is particularly good in this one.
The score is really good. Yeah.
I think that's probably the strongest thing about this film.
Really good.
The score stood out to me watching it. I think Winton, what's the other one's name? Winton Kid's theme is really good. Yeah, I think that stands out to me. I like that there was a rat in the tube.
There you go.
This has some of the most egregious Bond plot armor, though. I was talking about this. They just choose not to kill him over and over and over again. Why they put him in that pipe instead of killing him makes no sense. Why at the end they're going to set a bomb in a fake cake makes no sense. Like that kind of stuff bothers me so much compared to like Dr. No not killing him. There's like a plot reason for it. This is just like because Bond can't die.
I mean, that is sort of like the ultimate challenge for the writers of every Bond movie.
100%.
How do you not kill Bond?
Really poorly done in this one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's kind of missing those sorts of clever moments of Bond, being Bond and talking himself out of situations.
Blofeld could kill him when there's two of them in the room. Like there's just so many moments of that in this where there's just it's a big mess.
Yeah, but this is the fun Bond film. I mean, Winton Kid have no reason to dump him in a future sewage line or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like there's a scary robot in it.
It's a nonsense movie, but yeah, it is like I said, it's intentionally nonsense to an extent, I think. And you either get on board with it or you don't. I don't know if I can really say that it's good per se, but I am having a good time with it.
I think this is a Bond film I would never recommend to anybody, but I like it. I don't think I could ever wholeheartedly give this movie a firm recommendation. I feel like when I talk to like an older generation of Bond fans or like people around, older than my dad, it's this thing of like, well, they were never as good as the Connerys, early Connerys. And in a way, I could kind of understand where they're coming from if every 2 years you're waiting for a new Bond film and you don't get From Russia with Love ever again. It's not true with me. And I love taking these films at face value. And yeah, I think as a course correction for Majesties, it's so bizarre. I wonder what I would have felt about Majesties if I saw it in 69. But the idea that in 3 films you go from Majesties to Diamonds Are Forever to Live and Let Die, that is a crazy pendulum swing.
Yeah, that definitely
in
is.
This franchise.
All right, where do you guys want to rank Diamonds Are Forever?
As much as I love this movie as a Bond fan who loves every Bond movie because it is Bond, this is clearly at the bottom of the list.
Buck?
I want to put it above Thunderball. I know that's insane. I know that's wrong, but I don't care.
You do you,
and
man.
I have fun watching Diamonds Are Forever.
You have your rap opinion.
And you know what? Justice for Plenty O'Toole. She should never have gotten killed.
Yeah, it's true. She really didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, this is easily the bottom for me.
What the fuck's wrong with you guys?
Like, I like it the least, but I also think it's the worst movie.
No, I'm just joking. This movie is pretty bad.
All right. So the Rats on Film objective ranking, in our opinion, for the Sean Connery James Bond films, starting from the bottom: Diamonds Are Forever, Thunderball, Dr. No, You Only Live Twice, Goldfinger, and The Big Cheese, From Russia with Love.
I'm happy with that.
Good list.
I'm happy
I think
with
it's
that.
I think it's an interesting list. Listen, I obviously love these movies, and I feel in rewatching all the Connerys leading up to this, I even got a greater appreciation than I had as many times as I've seen them. But there's something where it's like, I don't think I ever paused. I never watched these films in order. And I'm so impressed by the filmmaking. And I think these are risky. I think they were risky movies to make. And the fact they swung and knocked it out of the park pretty consistently throughout the 60s. If Thunderball is the low point of the 60s out of 6 films, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to continue to cover Bond on the show because I'm not like the biggest Bond fan in the world. So it's interesting to kind of revisit these and see how I feel about them now a few years later and watch them and then discuss them with you guys who are huge, like lifelong fans of the franchise.
I love the fact that every Bond fan has a different ranking. And I think you can find something in all these movies. And I think in watching them, I'm just like, yeah, the thing that's so successful is the tonal balance and then inviting you to join in on the fun. So I'm glad we did this. I'm really looking forward to the next ones.
Yeah, we'll come back and do the other Bonds at some point. We'll do an episode for each different Bond. We'll probably combine the ones who did less films and maybe we'll do an unofficial episode. I don't know when we'll get them or even what order we'll do them in. There was a discussion about doing Daniel Craig first, but then Buck wanted to do Connery. So we'll do them all at some point. But yeah, start it out with the OG. All right. Hey, thanks for listening to Rats on Film, everybody. Tell a friend about the show where a bunch of little rats talk about and rank movies. Let us know what your opinion on the Sean Connery James Bonds are. Which is your favorite? Which is your least favorite? How do you feel about our list? And let us know which James Bond you want us to talk about next if you've got an opinion about that. We'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about and rank some movies. In the meantime, you can follow us, Rats on Film Pod, social media, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. And yeah, rate us 5 stars or whatever. Like, comment, subscribe.
Anyone. We're easy.